understand the mystery. First take a look at the history. The words we use will give us clues. So join us now in Church Chatter.
Welcome to the Church Chatter podcast, where we unpack a different church word or phrase. Each week, I'm Sam. I study language and culture.
And I'm Dylan. I'm an ELCA Lutheran pastor.
I think I'm going to start saying I study language and power, because that's really what I do, is the power dynamics all mixed up with language. So I'm Sam. I study language and power. And this is Dylan, a Lutheran pastor. And we're married. If you didn't know that by episode 72.
And happily.
We're happily married. We've got our candle. I'm cold. I'm freezing. It's windy out here in Pennsylvania today. So Dylan, what have you been paying attention to?
This is really random, but I don't know if you can see in the back of me here, there is a little like spring duck, and the duck is holding tulips. And
Speaking of happily married, those like popcorn decorations are a debate that a dialogue with differing perspectives that Dylan and I enter on the regular. I do not like them. Dylan does.
Samantha actually hates them. But what I have been thinking about is how much joy they bring me.
Yeah. So you put them up.
I put them up. So we just recently put these up with our Easter decorations. So the one behind me, these are they're called popcorn decorations. So that's what most people call them. And they're like plastic beads that have been melted into different shapes and different symbols for the holidays. And in the early 1960s and late 50s, and then kind of into the 70s, they were extremely popular. And so we have a lot of them. We have like a rabbit, an Easter rabbit with a basket with eggs. We have.
This is what you've been paying attention to, is these decorations?
Yeah. I think whoever created them was brilliant, and they're usually like really bright and kind of a little trippy, and they kind of have that 1960s feel. And
they give you a dopamine hit every time you see them. It's good for your mood. Yeah.
They do. So they bring me great joy. And actually, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have like 6 of them for Easter. We have ones like that where like ducks are hatching out of eggs, and it's just real weird. And I love the decorations. And I've been paying attention to whoever created those is brilliant. They're probably dead now, but
wonderful.
Yep. What have you been paying attention to? Not popcorn decorations, we know that.
No, a lot of my attention recently has been on, I've been working on a book for about, I don't know, like 9 months about essentially the literacy of liturgy and how mainline Protestant churches that a lot of people think are like boring churches have so much depth. It's just not the kind of depth that you would get like at a mega church where you go one time. You're like, wow, there's 50 kids here and they have so many children's programs and the pastor's really charismatic. So I like it here. This is the kind of depth that takes years of endless exploration. And so I've been working on that book, and it's like 75% of the way done, which in my experience is like the hard part to push through. And I've done something recently creatively that I never do. I'm committed creatively. When I commit to a project, that is my project. I don't do other projects. I might write like poems here and there and send them to publishers, but I don't work on 2 books at once. But I felt very called to write another book on the power and politics of grammar. And it's actually a very easy book for me to write because I already know all of it. So I'm just like, I'm actually taking a break from my like project to do another project, and I'm wrestling with it. I'm trying to decide if that's okay. Like, am I going to lose the stamina and the passion for the first project and it's just going to sit empty in my folder forever? I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm trying to work on both. It's just tricky creatively. I've kind of broken a contract, but I'm still committed. So that's what I'm paying attention to.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And it's
how I feel about it, but I'm doing it.
It's exciting. You have two projects going at one time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So it's, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It's Women's History Month.
It is, and it's also it's Women's History Month, and also just to remind everyone, it is St. Patrick's Day today.
The day we're recording it, I think it should be uploaded, if not today, tomorrow. The day we're recording it is St. Patrick's Day. It's Women's History Month. So let's talk about Myrrh. This is episode 72. Let's talk about birth control.
Oh.
So we're going to talk about Esther. We're going to talk about Numbers. We're going to talk about, let me scroll on my notes here. The Song of Solomon, right? This isn't an episode you want to listen to with kids. Let's just start there. At least not young kids, teenagers, sure, but like young kids. So let's talk about myrrh. We've got frankincense and myrrh, right? But I want to focus in on the birth control. So the book of Esther tells a story of Esther saving the Jewish people from genocide by hiding her Jewish identity and seducing the Persian king to become queen. Our dog, who died a couple years ago, Esther, we used to call her our wandering Jew and our Queen Esther. So Esther, I actually have it here. Okay. Esther, chapter 2, starting at verse 12. Are you ready? So I really want to make this point. Are you okay?
Yeah, I can't seem to get to my notes, but that's all right.
Are you sure that's all right?
Just keep talking and I'll work.
Okay. All right. The turn came for each young woman to go into King, how do I say it? Ahasuerus, whatever, the king, after being 12 months under the regulations for women, since this was the regular period of their cosmetic treatment. 6 months with oil of myrrh and 6 months with perfumes and cosmetics for women. So let's break that down. They were anointed with myrrh and oils for an entire year before seeing the king. Seeing the king is a euphemism for having sex with the king. That's what's happening here, right? These women were going in, and before seeing the king, there was myrrh and other things put on them for a whole year. Myrrh was a known contraceptive. There is birth control in the Bible. Plain and simple. There's birth control in the Bible. We know this because, for a lot of reasons, but a Greek physician and expert in gynecology named Cyrenius, I think that's how you say his name, of Ephesus, he wrote about myrrh as birth control sometime during the first 2 centuries of CE. First 2 centuries CE in the Common Era, right? So in the first 200 years of the Common Era, they were talking about this. Medical professionals were writing about this, that myrrh was it was birth control. And I find this especially interesting that the book of Esther tells the story of a woman taking control over the harm that is intended on her people, while also taking control over her own body by applying a contraceptive to avoid pregnancy before seeing the king or sleeping with the king, right? Women had their own codes and medical practices, and it was passed down from generation to generation, right? From grandmother to mother to daughter to granddaughter. Women found ways to protect themselves from unwanted pregnancies, and they shared this knowledge with each other. And we find traces of this preserved knowledge in Esther and in other places throughout the Bible. And I find that fascinating, don't you?
I do. It is important to mention, though, that this type of contraception in the ancient world was usually only offered to people of affluency.
Yes.
This was not for the peasant poor, and I'm not trying to be classist when I say
but it's a
that.
reality.
But these types of
well, and you were sleeping with the king, so you were probably somehow.
These types of medicinal treatments were not accessible to everyone. They were available to people like courtiers, meaning people in like the royal courts or the aristocracy, or like gentry people, landed gentry. But they were not. They some argue that they weren't even, that some like country people or workers or laborers, they weren't even aware of these practices.
Yeah, that's a good some good nuance that is needed.
So,
Yeah.
so, so
It
when
wasn't
they,
acceptable.
no, and when they would even read that, they were thinking, oh, well, myrrh is also, it has a smell to it, and there's myrrh is also, as we'll talk maybe a little bit farther into the episode here. Myrrh was also a common thing known as anointing for burial, and so a lot of people would have that connection, but they didn't have the. It was kind of only the elites that kind of knew about this.
Only the elites, but then even after biblical texts were written down, so we've got that in this book called the Bible, we have birth control wisdom.
Sure.
And interestingly, it has been until the Protestant Reformation, when the Bible was put into the common tongue and given to women for the first time in the home as a means to educate their children in biblical literacy. It was men for many centuries interpreting this stuff.
Right.
Men didn't think about this.
No.
Right? They didn't think about these things. They didn't even really know. They would just read that and be like, oh, yeah, sure. They had oils, perfumes. Great. They wanted to smell good. I don't know what they thought. But they weren't interpreting it through the lens of wisdom passed down through generations of women.
There is some general commentary on that, actually, from the.
Well, I do want to clarify. It's fringe. I'm sure that there are men who have picked up on it before. But go ahead.
Well, yes, not the contraception part per se, but the idea that one would prepare themselves, that a woman would prepare themselves so that they would be edifying to the king, not necessarily for not having a child, but for
they'd be presentable. They'd be sexual.
For other, so they looked at this kind of bathing in perfumes and oils, particularly myrrh, as a kind of sexualizing, unfortunately, of the woman. When really, as most of the women knew, and some medical professionals of the time, yeah, it was perhaps for that, but it was also actually much more so for contraception.
Birth control, right? Yeah. And then even in Song of Solomon, there are some plants discussed in relationship. Dylan loves this.
Chapter 7.
Yes, Dylan with his very Christian family likes to open the Bible and read this part, just as like, this is biblical. This is biblical.
Well,
but
I just like to see how. I just like to see. I don't want to get into this too much, but I just like to see how people they try to twist. They try to twist all of
the Bible into very purity.
Right. Yeah. They talk about like, oh, well, this is between a husband and wife. No, it's not. It never was. It never was. There's nothing about that. I don't want to get into that, but
I mean, we're not proclaiming that there isn't something beautiful about sexuality being within the context of commitment or marriage. I'm not making that argument, but also we can't act like historically and biblically it only ever occurred between a man and a wife who were married. I mean, that's just not true.
No. I mean, yeah. I mean, especially as a well, generally as a person, but especially as a pastor. Oh no, I think that should be centered on a committed relationship between sexual relations. I'm pretty firm on that. However, that's not what's.
I'm not pretty firm on that, but
well, I am. That's okay. But I think that's not I shouldn't say I think. That's not what's being talked about.
So Song of Solomon, they talk about a bunch of plants like pomegranates and myrrh and cinnamon that were used by women as contraceptives. And the man offers, in Song of Solomon, the man offers these contraceptives to the women, just as any person wishing to avoid pregnancy would do, right? Like these are very like sexual plants and medicinal plants in the context of sexuality, right? Myrrh.
Yeah, but he's also describing a woman's body with those.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying is like these plants are all sexualized in this context, and myrrh is thrown in there because it's used in this context. Yeah, maybe I wasn't clear about that. So this part isn't about myrrh, but I still think in the context of birth control, it's important to talk about this. I'm not arguing one side or the other. This is a very debated text. I do have my own stance, and I don't think it's about abortion, but some people argue that it is. So in Numbers chapter 5, verses 11 through 22, it states that if the woman has been unfaithful, and then it says, this water of bitterness will bring the curse to her bowels, make the woman's uterus drop and womb discharge, and bring her bitter pain. If this pain does not come, it will prove that there was, in fact, no fetus to abort, and the wife was not unfaithful after all. Now, the English Standard Version of Numbers 5 says, "May this water that brings the curse pass into your bowels and make your womb swell and your thigh fall away." Within Judaism, the thigh is a euphemism for the uterus. So some interpret this to be an incident of abortion. Abortion is one way to interpret Numbers 5. There's a lot of debate. I'd say the debate goes mostly towards this is not about abortion in the scholarship. There are other ways to understand this text. Some read this not as an intentional miscarriage, but as an intentional damaging to the uterus so the woman can no longer conceive if she has been unfaithful, which is still very brutal to talk about. The punishment in this interpretation, it's not the miscarriage or abortion of the fetus, but it's the inability to become pregnant in the future. The Hebrew, I mean, where I stand on this is I don't think we can go to the Bible for the abortion debate. I just don't think that's the text that we should be using. I think this is an ethical thing that goes beyond the Bible, right? The Hebrew does make this text somewhat ambiguous and I think inappropriate to the abortion debate at all. Does that make sense the way I explained it? So if we're talking about birth control, I just wanted to mention this. It's not about Myrrh, but if you do some research, you'll find this Numbers chapter 5 thing in the conversation of birth control and abortion and all of this. But I think that one's too nuanced and too much context has been lost for us to really grab onto that as evidence for any side of the debate. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's my main point with Myrrh. My main point here is to make the point that birth control is discussed in the Bible and women's wisdom has been ignored because the Bible wasn't interpreted by women until about 500 years ago for the most part. And the Protestant Reformation, I say this all the time, but it put the Bible into the hands, homes, and languages of women. And this resulted in women's interpretations complicating historically dominant interpretations. And Myrrh is birth control. Anything to add?
Just that myrrh is two short things. Myrrh is still used to create or craft or make what's called chrism, CHRISM, chrism oil. And chrism oil is used for a couple different things. It's used for baptism when children or adults are anointed. It's used at that point in time. It can be used for confirmation. It doesn't have to be, but it can be used for confirmation. And it is also used when someone is ordained to be particularly a pastor or a deacon or a bishop. And it is also used to anoint the sick and dying right before someone dies. So it's usually those four things. And it's oil mixed with balsam and myrrh and frankincense. It's those three herbs, those three things mixed with olive oil, and it becomes what is known as chrism. And so myrrh is connected to oil, connected to healing, connected to this kind of understanding of helping one heal from something, from an infirmity, and then also anointing someone, setting one apart in terms of anointing.
Which isn't that different. Like if you think of aspirin, aspirin is used for headaches. It's also used to thin blood, right? Like we have medicine now that has many usages in our culture and medicinally, and myrrh is the same way.
Right. So myrrh is connected to oil in the church. And then the second thing is that myrrh is also historically connected. Myrrh is all throughout the Old Testament. It's also in the New Testament. Myrrh is deeply connected to burial rituals. So deeply connected to anointings or kind of rituals around the dead. It still is today, even in the Christian church. A lot of times, like I said, people right before they die will be anointed with chrism, which has myrrh in it. And in the ancient times, they would actually pour myrrh over the body once they cleansed the body before it was wrapped in linens to be placed in a tomb or a grave. And so a lot of people in the ancient world, even outside of Judaism, knew of myrrh as a type of burial ritual.
So you did an adult form education thing at our church recently, which we call donuts for the grown-ups. But and there are
you came up with the title.
Yeah, I did. But you did something on was it the Ark one? No, what's the thing that Jesus was wrapped in when he died?
Oh, the Shroud of Turin.
The Shroud of Turin, and which was really interesting. But when you started talking about burial customs and like funeral customs of ancient and also present day and why they are that way, people were interested in that. And I wonder if we could do an episode on those things, which I couldn't contribute much to. Could probably look into some of the language surrounding these things, but that would be so interesting to do an episode.
Yeah, more people are interested in that stuff than what you think.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I don't know much about that, so we should add that to our list of things.
I had to learn
find language.
Yeah, and I had to learn a lot about. I mean, you would think like, what would you need to know that for? But I had to learn a lot about that in seminary about burial practices then and now, and how they are the same, how they're different.
So interesting. Yeah. All right. Cool. Stay curious.
Stay curious.
To understand the mystery, first take a look at the history. The words we use will give us clues. So